Happy Thursday, everybody. It's Jim. It's Amadeus, and we're going to take a little trip down memory lane because this next week is going to be the final Pac-12 basketball tournament as we know it. We're not going to say the Pac is done. It's not done, but it's not going to look like it did. Amadeus's conference, it was around for 114 years, is going to take a whole different look come this summer.
Yeah, it's definitely a shame. So might as well enjoy this last Pac-12 conference tournament while we can. Obviously, we've already seen the last of the football from the conference that we'll be seeing. So yeah, it's I know some are happy about it, some are very saddened and disappointed about what went down in the Pac-12. And honestly, Jim, I think I lean more on that side as well. Just a little saddened by what has happened here.
I'm very sad in many ways. I have great friends at USC and UCLA who they're not leaving anywhere. They're going to the Big Ten. I'll probably see them more than I would when they were out there. But I've done stuff with the Pac over the years, and as we were talking about in the intro, the part of this is this was a chain reaction. Okay, sports, specifically college sports nowadays, has become realignment. All right. What conference do you want to be in? Because, there's money involved here. How much more money, right? So when Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12 to go to the Southeastern Conference, okay, they had to give notice, which they did. They ended up both paying about $100 million to get out of the final bits of things that they had to do with the Big 12 so they could go to the SEC. All right. That chain reaction caused USC and UCLA, and a guy by the name of Greg Flugar, who you can watch here on YouTube. Greg's a great guy. I strongly recommend his show. It's called Peek Around the Corner. He broke the story that USC and UCLA was going to the Big Ten. Okay. All those, amazing journalists, and there's, the good old plotter, Greg Flugar, going out, finding it, and finds out they're going to go. So what that meant was the TV deal for the for the Big 12 and Pac-12 are up. What the Big 12 did under Bob Bowlesby in his last bit was he added Central Florida, he added Houston, he added BYU, and he added Cincinnati to the mix to backfill for Texas and Oklahoma. Then what happened was the contracts were up for TV. The Pac was up in 24, and the Big 12 was up in 25. But what they did is the Big 12 went in, talked to ESPN. ESPN offered them $36 million per team. They took it, and then when they went to talk to the Pac turned him down and said we can get more. Well, at the end of the day, that's what started this whole thing off. They couldn't get more. I'd reported that Apple would come very close to that number, but they didn't want to be on Apple. They wanted to have linear television. So what we had was a mess. We had teams trying to get out to go to and trying to make a case through their fan bases to why you should be here. And Amadeus, it's a minefield of crazy out there. I once made the stupid comment on my part that that BYU was of the four teams that they added, the Big 12 had, BYU was the only one that had intrinsic value. They had a history, right? BYU had won a national championship as an independent back in 1984. Back when they had, that type of thing. But what evolved was the Pac couldn't get out of their own way. They didn't know what to do. They were overvaluing themselves, and so there were teams trying to desperately, instead of trying to stay together, they were trying to find ways to get how can I follow USC and UCLA over to the Big Ten, or what's my option here if I'm Arizona and Arizona State and Utah and Colorado? Do we go and play in the Big 12? At the end of the day, uh, last summer, yeah, it was last summer. Um, it came down to one day. It literally came down to one day. It came down to a day when they were going to vote on the Apple, and I put the Apple deal out there months before this had come to it. But anyway, the Apple deal was paying them, and the basketball coach at Arizona said, we can't survive if we have to be on just streaming television. We need to have a linear partner. Now, they never said that they wouldn't. Apple has a linear partner in the MLS and Fox. There could very well have been something like that. We don't know that Fox and Apple wouldn't work together, right? But we never will, because on that evening, when the vote was coming up, that evening, Washington and Oregon took uh, a move to the Big Ten, took partial money, partial payment to go, and then that put Colorado and Utah and Arizona State into the Big 12, and so now that means Oregon State, Washington State are the Big Two now, because of NCAA rules, because you have to have 8 teams in a conference. But this was not something of their own doing. So the NCAA gives them a year to do whatever it is they can do to keep the pack together. And the reason, there's money there, so there'd be reason to try to keep it. There's a potential, we talked about this, of them keeping P5 status. It's unlikely that would happen, but it's not impossible. And there's also, could they merge with the ACC? The ACC, by the way, offered a merger to the PAC, and they turned it down. And prior to going out and getting Central Florida and Cincinnati, Houston, and who am I bluffing? Oh, BYU. There was a conversation about the Pac-12 and the Big 12 merging that didn't go. So, there's whatever happened to the to the Pac-12 is on the Pac-12. It's not on anybody else. I mean, nobody destroyed the conference. They did it very nicely themselves. And so, I don't know. It's going to be interesting watching. I know that so many people will be tuning in on a Saturday afternoon to watch Rutgers play USC or UCLA host Maryland in the games out on the West Coast. But, and I'm quite certain that Utah and Arizona aren't overly crazy about playing football and basketball in the Big 12, but we'll see. That's where they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks for dealing all that knowledge onto us. That was very beautiful. It's a very complicated situation. What's
Yeah.
going on with the Pac-12? Obviously, we're bringing it up on the show today just because a few of my good buddies, good friends, and fellow handicappers in the Insiders Room Discord. Shout out to my guys, Joey Tron, Nick Parsons, Rye Cape. We had a bit of a conversation about it this morning. We wanted to know what happens to the Pac-12 next year, and the problem was nobody really had an answer because nobody really knew what was going to happen. And yeah. I know just this is definitely your area of expertise, Jim. So thanks for showering us with this beautiful knowledge on the Pac-12, because it's a very sticky situation, as we can tell from what you just said.
Yeah, and this is where things are going to get interesting, right? If you're Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, the people in the Big 12 know you didn't want to be there. So when you've got Utah coming in as your as your prohibitive early favorite to win the conference, that's not going to win them a lot of fans. So, they already have BYU over there for the Holy War. And let me tell you something, that is massive. Okay. The Holy War between Utah and BYU, it's not pretty. It is it's a very ugly and very interesting rivalry. Boy, they got passionate fans on both sides of the aisle on that one. And they really gonna do some damage. Arizona, I mean, Arizona comes into there, and you know this as well as I do. They're probably going to be in basketball. They're probably not going to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in that conference.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough for them, obviously, because we've seen them really dominate the Pac-12 these
Right.
last few years. But the Big 12, as we know, is one of the best conferences in college basketball. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Houston, they talked a lot of talk, and they came out and walked the walk when they, first year in the conference, and they're just absolutely blowing the doors off everybody. So unless Arizona has a similar entrance to the Big 12 next season, it'll be interesting to see what's in store for them, because I totally agree with you where you're getting more value out of the basketball team by bringing Arizona in. Obviously, we know the Big 12 for football. It's definitely not as good as the SEC and the Big 10. They're more of the basketball conference for sure, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Arizona had the good football team finally, and then that went, kind of out the window with Jed Fish leaving. So there's a lot to unpack, even with the teams that have, fled to these new conferences, because obviously it's going to be a different Washington. No Kalen DeBoer. There's going to be a different Arizona
no
team.
Michael Penix.
So there really is a ton to unpack, as you said.
Well, and the other part is that you've got teams, and this will be from a handicapping standpoint, okay? You've got 8 teams that will meet each other in the Big 12 for the first time. Those West Coast schools, the Arizona schools, Utah, and Colorado, those are schools that are going to be playing the Baylors and the Kansas and Kansas State and Oklahoma State and all those folks, and going to have a good time. But it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting when you get to go to see your buddy in West Virginia and say, I want to see them play, Arizona. That'd be cool. One of those situations. But it's going to be an interesting thing. And from the Big Ten standpoint, you've got the addition of of SC and UCLA, which is going to make for a very crazy but fascinating handicapping season when you've got trips to I forgot Washington and Oregon. So you've got a lot of teams in the Big Ten that are going to be playing teams that they may have played in bowl games or maybe a one-off, but now they're now they're part of the conference.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be a big thing to watch, obviously, because, teams travel. Yeah, maybe you'll get the odd game where you got to travel across the country in the non-conference schedule, but very rare. Obviously these conferences, some of them have, a team here or there that's out, way out of the region. But even then, right, that's 1 or 2 teams a year that you're seeing. Now with this, you got to really factor in how the travel is going to affect, specifically in the Big Ten and the ACC, where majority of the conferences on the East Coast, these West Coast teams are going to find themselves traveling every other week. And you take travel into account, and it's fine. We've seen these teams do it before in the non-conference schedule, but when it becomes, every other week or so where you're traveling, then it starts to become a fatigue factor where, are the kids getting tired of, every other week I got to hop on a plane and go across the country, the 6-hour plane ride to just to go play one game and then fly back. Right. So it's definitely going to be one thing to watch with the travel, specifically in those 2 conferences. I think just because the travel is going to be so much more. Obviously, there's still a lot of travel in the Big 12, but it's more of a centralized conference with a lot of the teams compared to the ACC and the Big 10 really being coast to coast.
Literally, yes. And here's something too, I want to, as a handicapper, I don't know if you factor it in or let it go. Um, when you've got West Coast teams coming east, right? And you've got, that some of these teams are going to play big noon, because big noon is one of the top, things on Fox. So you've got Big Ten. The Big Ten game is, let's say it's USC at Penn State. Okay, so that's at noon. That's 9 o'clock in body time. You're going to have to get up earlier than that, obviously, to get to the. So you're talking 7 o'clock local time. You get to the stadium for a 12 o'clock kick, or let's say 8 o'clock. That's 4 hours ahead of time. You dress, you get taped up, you get all that in your body clock, because you just flew across country. You got there on a Friday night, right, or Friday. Your body clock is, you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you brought that up, because that is definitely a huge factor. We even talked about it last season when Colorado and USC were playing that noon game that made no sense. Right. It was a 10 a.m. start locally for them, but we have to give them the big noon kickoff. And yeah, that's a great point, because some of these teams are going to be having to do that, multiple times this year, where you're playing pretty much a 9 o'clock game. And you have to endure the 6-hour flight beforehand and after.
And so back.
It's brutal.
Well, the good news is, in football, you have charter, okay? There's a charter plane. And so the moment the game is over, you get on the bus and you boogie back to the airport and you're out of there. That's not the case in basketball. Basketball is not charter planes, okay? You're taking commercial planes. So you could be sitting in the, the lounge area, waiting and watching as planes don't go anywhere because of the weather. And so, there's going to be times, and I've seen this happen even in, not cross-country travel, right? I've seen teams where they get the airport, they get picked up at the airport by the bus, and the bus driver tells the coach, we can go one place. We can either go to the gym, to the basketball facility, with the arena where you're playing tonight, or we can go to the hotel. I can't get you to the hotel, let you unpack, let you, do what you need to do at the hotel, and then come back. I can't do that. You get one choice. What do you want to do? And, obviously they're going to go play the game. So I've seen guys, fly all afternoon to get to, a place that may only be 2 hours away, but they've spent time there because of the weather that happens in the wintertime. And you're sitting there and you get to the the gym, to the arena, and you go in and you've been on a plane all day.
Yeah, so, definitely the worst feeling ever. Don't want to be.
Yeah, we don't like it when we're just doing it ourselves, right? The inconvenience of flying in the wintertime. It's like, okay, here we go.
Exactly, right? And then to have that time pressure too, where it's like, oh, we're going to be here at this time, go play the game, and then still got to get out of here afterwards because we've got another game, 2 days from now. We've seen
you keep looking at you keep looking at your watch, going, okay, it's 2 o'clock. We got a 7 o'clock tip, and we're 500 miles away. Yeah, how's that going to work?
Yeah, and we've seen it happen where games sometimes have to get postponed because the team. Right. The flight's delayed or you just can't make it in time, right? So sure. It's definitely happened before.
Oh, yeah. It has happened. We actually even had a situation where we had to postpone a telecast because the truck couldn't get there.
You need the truck for that.
You need the truck to do it. So, no cameras. We can do a very expensive radio broadcast, but
we gotta get Sergio on call and get the camera out.
Get the camera out. But yeah, I mean, all of the. I'm personally, maybe just I'm an old school person. I don't think that. I think that the joy of college sports is the regionality of it. the fact that you and Buddy can get in a car and drive to some away games, right?
Yeah.
I think this has not been done at all for the fans. I think uh, the changing of the conferences has been done for the cash, and I get that part of it. But it takes away the fun of playing teams that are within your footprint, and it breaks up conferences. I would never in a million years, 3 years ago, if somebody told me, is the Pac-12 going to be gone? And I'd said, wait a minute, you're talking about a conference been around for over 100 years. No, they're fine. But, it just goes to show you how sometimes greed and wanting to be, the grass is greener on the other side is not necessarily good for sports, and certainly not necessarily good. We're right in the midst of this week. There was an article some of you've read, I'm sure, about Dartmouth, coming together as a union. That had to send a chill down the spines of every athletic director not in the Ivy League, because they felt, that they needed a union to take care of them, to work these things out. And we're already in the NIL world, right? How far are we away from pay for play for college sports? It's going to be something. I mean, if it were to go that way, you literally would have colleges paying players as employees of the institution.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up, because a lot of people have talked about how NIL deals are destroying college,
Yeah.
and you got to wonder if it's contributed a bit into the realignment as well, right? Because
Oh, sure.
you said something very interesting when we started the Pac-12 conversation about how now it's all about realignment, and the schools are going, where do we want to be? Where can we make the most money? What
Right.
conference do I want to be in, and teams I want to face? Well, that sounds very similar to how the transfer portal is working right now. And, Nick Saban, who obviously recently retired, he came out and spoke about it yesterday, about how that was a big reason why he retired, the way his kids reacted after the game. They really thought, when they lost in the college football playoff, he really thought that they were going to improve next year and they were going to have an even better team. But the kids didn't see it that way. He claims when he had the one-on-ones with the kids, everyone's response was the same as, can you guarantee me playing time next year? Because I'll transfer if not. And how much money am I going to be making? So it's one of those things where we really are. It started off as a joke a year or two ago with the NIL deals are going to destroy college. It's like, yeah, well, it's definitely coming to fruition now.
Well, the funny thing is that the guy who was the first to challenge, the idea of NIL was a punter from UCF who was a YouTube guy. And basically he walked on at UCF. They loved him as punting. And one day the one of the athletic department people came and said, "Hey, we heard you had a YouTube channel." And he goes, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm actually making pretty good money off of it. It's not a living, but it really helps." And the guy goes, "Well, you can't do that anymore." And he says, "Why?" He says, "It's a violation of the NCAA rules." He goes, "It has nothing to do with what I'm doing on the field." And the guy said, "I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's the rule." So he challenged the rule. And we all know what happened there. Some of these guys who are making the big bucks ought to send that guy a few bucks, for what he did for them. But yeah, I mean, look, it is.
He has a point, though. He was just looking at it like, I'm doing YouTube in my off time. Like, get the hell out of here. What are you telling me? I can't
Stay
do
away
YouTube
from me
in my off time. It has nothing to do with you or the organization or what I'm doing on the field. So I totally understand where he's coming from. Absolutely.
I do too. I screw you. Fine. I don't. If you think I need to punt, that's crazy. I don't.
That would be telling like if you picked up a shift at your local Starbucks. What, I can't work at Starbucks? I'm not allowed. Like, it makes no sense. So I totally totally see that. And now we get schools like Dartmouth taking a little further, be like, we need to unionize, and it's just we're going down a very interesting path in the NCAA right now.
Well, to your point, okay, what the transfer portal has done is it has weaponized the bench player, the depth guy. Used to be when Saban looked, around the bench area, he would look over and go, okay, there's my guy this year. We'll get this other guy some time so that next year he can be our guy.
Yeah.
Okay. The seasoning effect. Okay. What you told me from what Coach said in the interviews was, wait a minute, I'm not your feature back. If I'm not your feature back, I can be the feature back at Auburn. I can be your feature back at Oregon. I can be feature back wherever. And so it does. Look, I'm all for kids getting an opportunity to play and play where they want to. No problem with that. And I've seen the other side of it too. I've seen a lot of these people think that football, basketball, baseball scholarships are 4-year deals. They're not. They're 1-year deal. Okay. That coach can take that scholarship away from you anytime out there. So don't believe. I mean, I hear a lot of people, well, they get a 4-year education. Well, yes and no. Yes, they could, but it doesn't always happen, either by their choice or by the school's choice. So when they use that antiquated, excuse, well, they're being paid by getting a scholarship for 1 year. They are. What happens after that 1 year? If another linebacker comes in and he's better than I am, and they only have a certain amount of scholarships, I could lose my scholarship to somebody who just stepped on, who they recruited. So you have to look at that as well. And, and what about the situations where, you're a coach and you talk me into going to your university, and oh, by the way, we get to play together for 1 year and then you're gone to a better deal. And I'm worrying about Jeb Fish coming in and liking me.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, and if I don't play his style of football, I'm not going to play. Is that my fault? No.
Yeah, like I said, we're going down an interesting path, and it's going to be wild to see where it takes us in the next.
It's wild
years.
already, yeah.
I know. It's just that's the thing, right? It started off as like, they're going to destroy college. Well, now it's kind of destroying conferences. It's destroying a little bit of teams.
Let me ask you a question, because I'm not familiar with this, and perhaps you can enlighten me. How do the club hockey teams in Canada work?
You mean like?
I mean, it's obviously a lot of kids, rather than go. A lot of kids will come to the United States and play from Canada. Will come and play college hockey in the United States. Some don't, and they stay in Canada and they play in what is I don't know. What would you call it? It's a junior league.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand the question. So we have two things. So obviously the AHL is here.
Right.
But one thing that's actually more popular is the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League.
Right.
And that's where, there's usually scouts at every game. So the Toronto Marlies is an AHL team. The Hamilton Bulldogs is an OHL team, I believe. And so that's one of those things where scouts are always showing up to that game. And so, I always say most Canadians will go to the States to college or university if they want to become a professional athlete, because that's the best avenue. But for hockey specifically, absolutely, the junior leagues seem to do very well. And I actually do have an example. I have a good friend from high school. His name is Braden Athanasiou. His cousin grew up playing for the London Knights and the Barrie Colts. His cousin is Andreas Athanasiou, who now plays in the NHL. So that's just, one example of scouts were always at those London Knights games. Scouts were always at those Barrie Colts games because they know, Kitchener, the Kitchener Rangers has been a team very well known for pumping out NHL players. So absolutely, it does work. It seems to be two different avenues. Either you go to the States and try to make it in college, or if you want to skip that altogether and go straight to pro sports. Hell, there was even one kid, I think this past season, he played one season in the CFL, got so much recognition, he declared for the NFL draft this year because I think he's still young. He's still like in his
he hadn't been
early
drafted
20s.
by the NFL.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where, he started in the CFL, didn't realize he was going to be so good and got all this, nationwide recognition. And now he looks at it like, well, if I'm one of the best players in the league here, I'm going to give it a shot at the NFL, see if somebody wants to draft me.
So if you're playing in the OHL or the AHL, you're paid, no?
I don't know, actually. I don't know the details behind
I think
that.
there's like a stipend or something. I mean,
that's something I've never really thought of because
I don't know that it's a contract thing, but I know that they get some compensation.
But
I don't know how much.
I can do a quick search right here because I actually don't know the answer to that one. But
well, while you're doing that, the reason I brought it up is that I can foresee a time in the future where we might have, colleges and universities may say, look, football, no, we can't afford it anymore. But there might be areas and regions that would take it up, much like a minor league, or a junior league hockey, where you've got that kind of regionality. But I don't, it's, the difference between the haves and the have-nots in college sports has never been wider, and it's not going to get any closer. And I even saw an article recently about the potential of these bigger conferences, telling some of their members that, sorry guys, you're not going to get the money that we're getting. They're going to slot it out in positions of how much money do you bring into the conference, and you would be paid accordingly in that regard. So like the Indianas, who used to have a decent basketball team, they never really had a decent football team. Those types of teams, and I just pick out Indiana because it came to mind, not because I want to pick on them, but those kind of schools are just going to be told, okay, you're going to get money from the Big Ten, but it's not going to be as much money as Ohio State or Michigan because you're not towing your weight.
Yeah. So I have the answer here. They do get paid a tiny salary. It's nowhere near, but it's more what you said. They get paid a weekly stipend during the regular season. They also get benefits such as like free equipment and things like that. So they don't have to pay for things like that. Right. But they're also eligible to earn additional income if they want to sign endorsement deals and things like that. They they don't get paid a legitimate salary because according to what I'm reading, they don't fall under employees that can be regulated by the Employment Standard Act in Ontario. So they do get a weekly stipend, free equipment, other benefits like that. And they're free to, sign whatever endorsements will make them extra money for sure. But it's nothing to write home about with salary wise anyway, if you don't have endorsement deals.
Well, I was just thinking, if you're a kid who doesn't want to go to college and play hockey, that playing in one of those teams that you said is also an option to get to the NHL. At least you get paid a little bit of money on the side, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? You get a lot of exposure too. That's mainly what the league, and that's what college is supposed to mainly be for too, exposure, right? And it's one of those things where we got to find middle ground, right? Like it's wrong to tell these kids, no, you can't get money for anything or anything. That's completely wrong. But I think the direction we're headed right now is also a bit wrong, giving them millions of dollars essentially just for, being a potentially top
Mhm.
prospect. You could easily be a bust in the NFL. Hell, you could go
Mhm.
through an injury and 4 years into your college career decide I don't even want to go to the NFL because
Mhm.
I don't feel I have the health to compete at that level. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things where we got to find some middle ground. Maybe they should get paid, but maybe not the amounts that they're getting paid now, because I know a lot of people, it was very 50-50 with what Nick Saban said, but I can see both sides of the coin with what he said. Like, yeah, it's definitely wrong to tell these kids you shouldn't get paid or do anything like that, but at the same time you go to college to build an academic education and a future on the NFL field. So he did have a point with that point that he made.
Mhm.
So like I said, I can see from both sides, and I think at some point there's got to be some middle ground somewhere with where these kids can get paid.
Well, I think it's also, if you're Nick, right? You're 72 years old. What more do you want to prove? You've
Yeah,
won everything, okay? And you've won it at two schools. You didn't just win at Alabama, you won at LSU, okay? I think that he's like in his own mind, you know what? It's one thing to coach a football team. It's another thing to be the CEO of the college football team, okay? I really don't need to find out how payroll is going. I don't really need to go through all this crap. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna coach and I'm gonna stay out of the business end of it. Okay. And you know what? I got a really nice house on the beach. I'm good. Okay. You guys want to play with this? Figure it out. I'm too old to figure it out. I don't really care. Okay. I think in Nick's mind, it was probably a brilliant move. Just like, screw it. I'll help out Alabama. I'll come back and help you guys recruit and do whatever. But, sorry, boys. This is not the way that I want to play. It's not a
yeah,
game I want
he's
to play.
he's the kind of guy like Pete Carroll, where it wouldn't
Yeah.
shock me if in the next 5 years you see him coaching the local the Alabama
Oh,
high
yeah.
school team or
Oh, yeah.
whatever high school is
Yeah. He
near
can't
where
stay
he
away from
lives.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll be coaching linebackers at high school, Um,
Yeah,
but,
and see, that's the thing, right? Because
yeah.
his statement yesterday was all about how his message wasn't resonating
Mhm.
with the kids anymore because
Right.
the NIL deals and all that stuff. Well, if you go coach high school, that's not as big a problem, and
Mhm.
there's a chance, you're going to get guys that are like, "Oh my God, Nick
Hey.
Saban's coming to coach us! What an honor this is!" And that
Right.
message will be resonating with your
Oh,
team
yeah.
once again. So maybe
Thun
that is the best move
Thunder.
for him, right?
Yeah, it may be. You were talking about we have the two stories, right? We have Saban saying, you know, it's not for me. There were years ago, Chris Webber, when Chris was playing at the University of Michigan. Um, Chris tells this story. If you've heard it before, folks, bear with me. Um, and this, and it was a true story that it was lunchtime. He was on campus. He went into a Subway, got a sub, got a bag of chips, got something to drink, goes up to the register, reaches in his pocket, pulls out the money, and he's a little short. And the guy who runs the Subway is going, Chris, I, you're good. Don't worry. It's a bag of chips. Don't worry. No problem. And Chris is thinking, if I take that bag of chips, the NCAA is going to, somehow they're going to find this out. So, and they were trained. I mean, let's be honest, they were trained not to. Okay. So he tells the guy to take the chips back, takes the sandwich, takes the drink, goes out, walks 2 blocks, and there is the bookstore. He's standing outside the bookstore. Literally in front of him is his jersey in the store on sale for $197. Did Chris get any of that money? No. Did he not have chips that day because he didn't have the money? Yes. So, I mean, you can look at it from both sides. You can look at it from Nick's side saying, okay, I'm 72 years old. Screw it, guys. I don't want to play this game. You can see it from Chris's side saying, hey, for 3 years, I started on a team that, made this university a lot of money, and I didn't see any of it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, right? Like, is Saban fully right? Absolutely not. Players deserve to be paid. But Are the players absolutely right? No, you shouldn't be getting paid NFL money for not even making the NFL yet. You're still in college,
Right.
you're still learning. There's got to be a middle ground, is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's got to be a reasonable amount we could be paying these players where it fixes
But
the problem a bit.
well, and I think here's where I think your middle ground is, and that is if you want to be, and this is it doesn't this could be for the NFL, it could be the NHL, it could be any sport, but it also could be in business, or in life for that matter. You need to pick a place where it fits you, not where they're paying me the most money.
Yeah.
If you play, I mean, we can go back to the contract A-Rod signed years ago with the Texas Rangers for $285 million, okay? It was the biggest contract at that point in history, okay? Did A-Rod win a ring during that time? No. Did he come close? No. Why? Because they couldn't afford to pay anybody else other than A-Rod on the team, okay? I think that the middle ground is you find a place where you're going to thrive and the money will take care of itself. I'm not saying don't take any money. I'm just saying the money will take care of itself. I mean, look at Penix, and Bo Nix. I mean, those are guys who had been given up on at other programs, but they found coordinators who they felt would give them the best chance to be as good as they could be. And they did. And so I would think and hope that if you're an athlete, you're looking for that. You're looking for who can help me get to where I want to be. And I'll tell you what's happening. And it's helping out the mid majors and the universities like South Florida and like that, is that when you go to Saban in Alabama or you go to Kirby Smart in Georgia or whatever, Georgia State got really good. And how? Because 3 of the Georgia players who were from Atlanta were not playing and getting as much playing time as they felt they could or should. So they went back to Georgia State. Mom and dad can come to the games. Family, all your buddies can come to the game. No problem. Trust me, you don't have trouble getting tickets to Georgia State games versus Georgia games. So, the point that we're seeing is there are kids coming back to where they grew up. Because, if I'm going to play, I want to play in front of the fans, where my folks and be around home. I don't want to sit on the bench, thousands of miles from here waiting for my time to come.
Yeah, and that's where I think part of the problem lies in there as well, where you have this situation now where there's 2 kinds of players. There's the kind of player that just wants to get rich quick, make that quick buck with the NIL deals, and hell, I don't even need to go to the NFL now. But
well, you're making more in your rookie contract, most of them.
Yeah, and this is where the problem lies, because then there's the second kind of player that, as you said, they're going to, well, I want to go to the NFL and I want to have a career. I want to win Super Bowls. It's not just about, let me get rich while I'm in college and never have to worry about anything ever again. No, I love the sport. I want to play the sport and I'm competitive. I want to win at a competitive level. I want to improve. I want to develop. I want to go somewhere that suits me. That's where I think the problem lies in. The NIL deals and the size of these NIL deals is creating a larger gap between players that just want the money and players that actually want to play the game and perform at a competitive level. So I think that needs to be bridged as well.
No, you're right. And I think that what we're finding out too is, it works that way in football, but it works even more in basketball, A, because there's a lot more teams, and B, the rosters are incredibly short. So, that if you can go play a couple of years at, it doesn't matter what school you play at. The NBA is going to find you.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can be playing in Yugoslavia, these guys can find you.
Yeah. I mean, look at half the stars in the league right now, right? They're from they're from Europe, so
Right.
definitely, you know, they'll find you, and that's why I think the college basketball tournament is so much better than the football
Mhm.
playoffs, right? Because it exposes some of these smaller seeded schools that, you know, maybe you
Mhm.
didn't know were that good. Like look at, you know, Ja Morant. Obviously,
Mhm.
he's had a storied
Mhm.
NBA career already, but he's a guy that came from Murray State. You know, that's
Right.
not a huge school. Like they're big in their conference when they're good, but that's not a huge
I'll give
school.
you one. I'll give you one. Steph Curry.
Yeah,
Steph played at Davidson. Okay. He couldn't get a scholarship to North Carolina.
he actually
Steph
played
wasn't
in
good
Canada,
enough.
I think. First, he
What?
played at a I didn't I read somewhere that he played at like a high school in Canada first before he
He
actually
might
went
have.
to
I don't
Davidson.
know.
He
But
played
I
like
don't
a
go that
year
far
up
back.
here, and then finally found his way to Davidson. Someone took a chance on him.
Well, the coach at Davidson went up to watch him play high school ball in the Charlotte area. Watched him play and figured, oh, there's no way this kid's coming to Davidson. Okay. He's too good. Goes back, calls the coach, the high school coach who invited him up, thanked him for inviting him. And the coach whose name escapes me, I apologize for that, says, are you going to offer him a scholarship? And he goes, well, why would I? I'm sure that North Carolina, Duke, NC State, everybody in the conference, ACC's all over him. He goes, no, he didn't have a scholarship at all yet. Said, okay, no problem. Drove back, met with the family. Steph Curry goes to Davidson. You know, um, that doesn't happen often. Okay, let's just say that is not something that occurs, on a regular basis. But to your point, it does occur. John Morant, Steph Curry. So you don't have to play at a big school, But you're right. The beauty of March Madness is the fact that you do get to see teams and players that you've never seen before. Everybody knew in 1979 in the basketball world that Larry Bird and Michael and Magic Johnson were two outstanding basketball players. They didn't know it, how good they were, until they played that senior year, and then they ended up facing each other in a national championship game. That's when they knew. That's when they went out and said, okay, now we know. Check the boxes here, you know. So yeah, I mean, you get the opportunity. How many people would have, had gone to an Indiana State game for that? How
Yeah,
many Indiana State games were on television at that time? Not many. If
yeah.
you count that one. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things where you can find the diamond in the rough, but it's we're not going to be able to solve the issue of what happens and how it happens, but I do hope, that to your point, that we find a good balance where you're getting a good education, you're getting a good foundation, you're playing for a coach and a program that you like that complements your style. That should be where you want to go, as opposed to taking a check from somebody because they're willing to write a big check.
Yeah.
And I know, look, I understand that each individual situation is tougher than the other. If sometimes families need that money, so okay, fine, you take it because you have to, and I understand that. But if you have that choice, best there. And unfortunately, cautionary tale is to the Pac-12. What happens when you don't have a plan and you're on the Titanic? Yeah. Don't order ice,
Yeah.
okay? Don't order any more ice. You're good. So, and a lot of people think that's going to happen to the ACC. That's another conversation for another day, and I don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe the ACC is going away um, because there are some people who would like that to happen. I get it, but no, I don't think they're going to go anywhere. Anyway, I know who is going somewhere, and that's Amadeus. He's going to tell us about what he's got today in his picks down in the box below.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. already off to a nice 1-0 start. I had a
Oh, there you
Europa
go.
League play that cashed. I did have another one, but it's starting right now, so you won't be able to get that. But you can get, my two plays in Argentina for tonight. I did go 1-1 yesterday, and I've been on a pretty good run in the Argentinian Copa de la Liga Profesional. In the month of March. So make sure you go check that out. And coming off a night where I missed with my NBA game of the year in the Pacific Division, but we're bouncing back tonight. I got a total of the year that you can go grab. And on the college side, I did cash my Big East game of the year with Seton Hall.
There
And
you
I
go.
got an Ohio Valley game of the year that you can go get today. So make sure you check that out.
Cool. And tomorrow, because it's Friday and it's the next to last, well, it is the last Friday before we get into to March Madness. Uh, that'll be next Sunday. So what we're going to do is we'll take a look at what games you should be watching this weekend in college basketball and why they're going to be important. So we'll do that. We'll also, as Amadeus will give us a good check on what's going on with the English Premier League and other soccer leagues on the weekends as they come up. And then we'll get ready to begin the madness, which is going to happen in about a week from Monday. So I'm sorry, a week from Tuesday, because they don't like to be called the play-in game, but the first first four is, I guess, what they call it
Yeah.
now. Okay, first four out in Dayton, how that goes. But we got a ways to go to get there, and we'll figure it out. All right, everybody, thanks very much for joining us. If you get a chance, hit the bell and subscribe, like us, and if you got any comments, put them down there. We'll definitely take a swat at them. Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care now.